Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 367, a real slap to the face. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside Ashley Soden. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Finally caught up on my sleep this morning. Stayed in bed until about midday to obviously get over not having much the night before. Because obviously me and you were in London till about 4, 4:30 together watching the games down there at the Hippodrome. So needed a bit of kip after that because I didn't really get too much on the coach.
It was a long old day, but many thanks to those of you who came out for that. It was great to see you all. Made it a good fun evening despite the result. Of course, we are going to be recapping the Lions' loss to Kansas City and going through a bit of news. But first, please join our Discord channel. Great place to chat Lions all year round. Of course, we do a great draft show. The guys do some great college stuff as well. So if you're interested in anything to do with that sort of thing, link is in the live chat right now, or it is in the description of the podcast in your podcast provider. College Football Podcast will be returning on Wednesday, being tomorrow. And it was another really exciting weekend of college football. Ash, I mean, I know we're both not on the college show, but very consequential results, including the end of the Franklin era in Penn State.
Yeah, exactly. Like finally, one of the big dragons is kind of fallen with that 50 million payout. Obviously, my team lost as well, so looks like our head coach is on the coals there. But yeah, nice little slate. Obviously, not too happy for Michigan teams with both Michigan and Michigan State losing, but at least other teams won.
Please do go and listen to those guys and the show tomorrow. Please do like this episode and sub to the podcast. You guys know what to do by now with that. And go and support Lions Nation Unite, Herman Moore's project, doing the best in Lions content creators together. We are Twitch affiliated, YouTube monetized, that sort of thing. So if you want to show some love that way, that would be excellent. Let's go through some news. Some transactions I cannot speak today. Some transactions have occurred since the last time we spoke to you. So, waived was the offensive lineman Kingsley Aguakin and defensive lineman Chris Smith. Also, to injured reserve was the tackle Giovanni Manu, missing a really, I think, big opportunity to continue to fill in for Decker's shoes. Decker, of course, inactive for this game once again. Signed to the 53 was defensive lineman Quinton Jefferson, cornerback Nick Whiteside, and safety Eric Hallett. And then for some reason, I haven't listed the signed to the practice squad players, even though I'm sure
none.
I did that. Oh, okay. Was there not?
There's not, no, because it all happened Saturday.
Oh.
So we haven't had like the tryouts to bring in new practice squad players.
I see. Okay, cool. Elevated for this game, offensive lineman Devin Cochran and cornerback Arthur Mollett. And then inactive for this game was Avonte Maddox, Taylor Decker. And then Lalim McNeil looked like he was going to play. A few of the national podcasters said it looks like he's going to play. He was still inactive for this game. Looks like that the signs are positive for Aleem McNeil to be activated for Monday Night Football next week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Signs also point upwards for Maddox. No real word on Decker yet in terms of whether he's going to go. I do not believe, Ash.
Nothing from Dan about Decker, though he did say with Maddox, probably not Monday Night Football.
Oh, okay.
He's pretty much already rolled him. And him and Arnold pretty much out, I believe, for that.
Right.
And as we get on to in a second, another player might not be playing on another couple of players might not be playing on Monday Night Football either, which will really hurt.
Yeah, so injured in this game, safety Kirby Joseph struggled to walk off the field with his injury with 11 and a half minutes to go in the second quarter before returning after the 2-minute warning, and then he played for the rest of the game, which was interesting because he was really struggling to walk off the field with help from trainers. And then Brian Branch obviously had his Juju Smith-Schuster punch up, and believe me, he's not the only guy who's wanted to punch Juju Smith-Schuster in his career. He has been suspended for a game. He is appealing that ruling. I believe that appeal is meant to be heard before Monday Night Football, so the outcome of that...
It's being held today.
Oh, it's being held today. There we go. Fine.
Yeah, and it might seem stupid it's appealing it since, happened on national television, but I believe there's precedent with Trent Williams, who, again, wasn't on national television, but he had a similar incident where he slapped a player and he was initially suspended and then he appealed it. And basically the appeal is more to get rid of the suspension. It's like a sort of, I'll pay a bigger fine if you don't suspend me. But then there's obviously the whole thing of he was carrying a foot/ankle injury into this game, so maybe the suspension happening now will be good because that means we'll force him to sit out the game rather than potentially hurting himself later and then having sit out later games. So it's one of the other. Obviously, we don't condone the slapping, but we can see why it happened. Just gotta keep your cool, man.
Yeah, one of those things. It's very, very frustrating, but we'll get more into that. Let's talk about it now, shall we? A little
Yeah.
bit more. Obviously, he has come out and basically said he hasn't had the protection from the rest that he should have had, that he was taking lots of kind of cheap shots after players had finished. There was the one play that happened with about 3.5 minutes to go where there's an illegal crackback block by Juju. The play, I think, has just finished by the time he gets hit. Branch has clearly kind of gotten beyond the 45-degree angle so that he's clearly hit in the back and very, very hard by Juju. It is not a minor hit that we're talking about here. It's clearly illegal. There's no flag. We'll talk about flags later on. But you can see why Branch is so kind of aggrieved at what happened. But he didn't go and slap him straight after that play. He waited for, probably 10 minutes of real time, 3.5 minutes of game time to go and then attack him. It's weird because it's one of those things where you could see that the red mist might descend and you just do it as a reaction to the play, but he clearly had enough time to kind of stew on it before doing it. That's the thing which makes it so egregious, really.
Yeah, so I can see why it happened though. Because obviously there was also the one that again should have been flagged earlier when Mahomes scored his touchdown. He quite clearly did his flex finger but pointed at Branch. That's taunting. That's a flag. That is a flag after everything we've seen. That's a flag. As we'll get on to, wasn't flagged. So it's the whole thing of you could see clearly at the sort of the post game, Mahomes is giving it the buddy, you'll do better next time, pat in the back. Then Juju comes over, says something, and that's what sets it off with Branch. I think it is Juju coming after the thing, and he's just been buddied, but like that, been belittled by Mahomes, and Juju comes over, says something, and then that's the straw that broke the camel's back. But again, it's talking about players with reputations. Branch will now definitely have a reputation of this because it's not obviously this put definitely over the line, but the incident that happened week 1 against Tucker Craft, he has a thing now where if he has an egregious against someone, he might be seen. It'll be looked at even more now. And I know people are looking at other ones where, like Tadir Tart, defensive tackle for, I believe, the Titans right now, he had a similar incident and he was fined a lot less than what Branch has been fined for. That's because that was Tart's first fine, while Branch has got so many. The line, Dan's completely right that we don't condone it. Obviously, that's literally the first thing said in his press after the game was not right by Branch. We apologise to Mahomes, to Juju, and to the Chiefs organisation. But I can see why it happened. You just got to keep your cool, man, because we don't need to lose you like this. Because thank God it kind of happened now where at least if you just appeal it and it turns out it gets extended to 3 games because we know what the bloody league's like, it's not going to impact us when we really need him for December, January, potentially February football. We'll hopefully have him around for them. But yeah, just stupid. And then we'll get, like, as you said earlier, we'll get onto all the flags because there's all these things about, it's the first time in like a couple of years no teams have no accepted penalties. Yeah, because there was only one that was flagged and it was so egregious and it was so late in the game that it didn't really impact stuff.
Yeah, frustrating. Many thanks to Big Area 70 for subscribing at Tier 1 on Twitch for their 45th month. I can't add up. Almost 4 years, coming up to 4 years. What's up?
We have some breaking news, some good, some bad. Waived from the 53, Lauren Strickland. Resigned to the practice squad, Kingsley Ogurukun and Chris Smith. Signed to the practice squad, Ash free agent special, cornerback Kendall Fuller.
Wow, that's a big one. Kendall Fuller's no mug. I know he's kind of lost a step, but that's a player you would expect to be on a 53-man roster, even at the beginning of the year, really.
Yeah, and as I've gone on to before, I think I mentioned him when obviously the Reed Arnold news happened after the Browns game, but it's just an age thing. I think he was carrying an injury to the end of last year. He's tried out for the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago, which is why he went back on my radar. But yeah, that's veteran guy. Is good in all schemes, good run defender, good tackler. He fits our scheme to a T. And while this might not be good news for, say, Arnold next couple of games, it's a reliable outside guy. It means that we don't have to rely on Nick Whiteside to take any steps to get injury. It means Rock, who, as we'll get onto in a bit, had an up and down game by many means. He's not thrust into the starting lineup anymore. He can be that cornerback free again. It just eases the load on the secondary a bit.
Yeah, that's huge. All right. Other things, we have one other piece of news, and then I'll ask you to kind of just reflect on all of the movements that we made. But a player that a lot of Lions fans wanted to return this off-season was the defensive end, Zadarius Smith. He announced his retirement yesterday, I believe.
Yeah.
He was playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, where he'd got 2 sacks on the year and had played fairly well and was playing a significant number of reps. I mean, not in the final game he played, but in the rest of the season, he was on the field fairly significantly for them. So, a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, definitely. I know some members of the sort of Lions media now are kind of dancing on his grave proverbially, because it's like, oh yeah, see, this is like, would we have been better off if we signed him? It might. It's a culture thing. He obviously, they're not doing too well. He's not having the most production there. He just might just be feeling the Father Time's caught up with him. But we've seen it time and time again. Players retire and then he might come out of it later on to play for a ring chasing team. But yeah, it's kind of sad. Obviously, there's that like the big sort of the sad one today is the one that broke within the last 20 minutes with Charles Leno retiring, the former Bears and Commander's tackle, and the timing of that very precedent, as in the actual time he released his retirement announcement. But fair play to Zadarius. Maybe he can go enjoy life with his girlfriend if he's still together with Cash Doll. If not, hopefully he can just enjoy the millions he's resting on and have a good rest of his life. Maybe the media, I don't know, but at least we were good, to quote Brad Holmes, at the edge position, because for him to retire would have hurt.
And then the other moves that we made in terms of the waivings and the signings and what have you.
Well, obviously with the 2 waivings we've got now, they're kind of back on the practice squad. It is what it is. Like Gurkhan, obviously when Colon came back, took over that backup centre job. Chris Smith being the sort of third, fourth string nose tackle, he can come. At least he's a good guy to have on the practice squad, because if we do have the injuries there, you can plug him in for a couple of games and he would be the worst. Having Jefferson up in his place, though, a bit interesting, because we already had a load of those sort of big end 4-eye kind of guys with Tyler Lacey, who really took on a role over the past couple of games. Pat O'Connor's also there. He plays that role. So, and then you've got Mekhi, who isn't even getting snaps. He can play that role. So it's interesting that seemingly Jefferson, in the week and a half, 2 weeks he's been here, has already jumped Mekhi Wingo, proverbially, because he was obviously Wingo was inactive. And then sad about Gio, especially since, it happened again. I wrote my previous stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, do we go with Skip? Do we go with Manu? Here's the stuff. Maybe I'll go for Manu because he needs developmental snaps, injured reserve. And now he's going to be out for the next couple of games. Really miss some developmental snaps against the Chiefs. Would he have been better than Skip? I don't know, but at least we would have given him those snaps, because you can't learn really tackle until you're on the job, because going up against second and third string guys, you're probably going to win anyway.
All right, let's talk about the game. Lions fall 17-30. They were only down 13-10 and then just get outscored. No, hang on. What, up 13-10? Am I going mad? The Lions were, down 13-10.
Yeah.
Up 10-6. And then proceeded to lose 24-7 after that point. So, things started pretty damn well. And actually, the Lions were going toe-to-toe. It's only 13-10 at the half, with the Lions kind of screwing up an opportunity to get a field goal at the end of the half to go in level. And then in the second half, the Chiefs really kind of just put the hammer down, didn't really give us anything at all. And yet, we scored a touchdown at the start of the fourth quarter to only go down 3. This scoreline, 13 points, it feels like it doesn't really represent, Ash, for me at least, the game that I watched, which was 2 close teams going toe-to-toe with a few key plays going in Kansas City's direction, and, other things we'll come on to about, gripes of what have you in this and that. But if you bounce the ball in the other direction, this could have been a totally different score.
Yeah, completely. Like, as you say, we were sitting there watching it, and it seemed very close. It's just the critical downs that really got us in the end. Just simple stuff like, okay, like, but no, simple stuff that 99 out of 100 times would go our way. So first and foremost, the Amon-Ra drop on fourth down was a bit of a wobbler, but you expect Amon-Ra to sort of bring that in and convert that. But there's just the other stuff like there was that the third and long where the third and 18 about to halfway through the second quarter, and we give up a 17-yard passing play that lets himself an easy fourth down to convert. Just stuff like that. That especially in that second half where we mostly did have to go more pass heavy, but the screens behind the offensive line, and it wasn't. We shot ourselves in the foot basically, and the Chiefs, when it came down to the money plays, were much better than us, and that's along with the other stuff. That's what killed us in the end, just not executing to our full extent.
Yeah, that was the key. Right, we're going to go through a bit of drive by drive, but in brief. Then we're going to go stock up, stock down, and then talk about a few key games from the weekend, including both Monday Night Football games, from yesterday's games. First drive, Lions on offense, made really good progress. Run game was gashing Kansas City up front. Had the Goff receiving touchdown where he didn't go in the center, but he did assume the role of a quarterback. Before going in motion and not resetting. There was a long delay, Ash, before eventually the flag was thrown. I mean, the Lions were primed to kick the extra point, which would have sealed the fate of that play, and they stopped it very late on in that process. So it is something where all scoring plays are reviewed. However, that's not what happened here, apparently. You know, the explanation from the league comes out. Apparently, there was no directive from New York. There's no way to prove whether that is or is not the case. You just kind of have to take their word for it that it is. So, presuming that that is true, the referees have said basically the reason why it took so long is because there's no referee's eyes on the quarterback during a play. And therefore, when the quarterback goes in motion like that, it takes them a while to figure out what happened. So it took them a long time in their decision-making process to decide what happened. But it does seem like the rule is quite clear that he was within a yard of the line of scrimmage behind his offensive line, which puts him as a T alignment quarterback, which means that he needs to reset if he goes in motion. So it does look like they ended up calling the play correctly, that it probably was a flag, and maybe this sort of thing should be on coaches to know that rule. Even if it's a little-known rule, it ended up being called correctly. Having said that, given that it was called a touchdown on the field, and that it took 90 seconds to 2 minutes to have this flag come, you can see why the fans are especially aggrieved about what happened, because it's kind of hard to believe that there wasn't a whisper in the ears of the refs saying you need to throw a flag on this. In the end, they got it right, but it feels massively egregious. And also, the rule doesn't even really make sense. Why, if you're a T position quarterback, does it make any difference to if you're in shotgun? Because if he was in shotgun, he'd have been allowed to do what he did. And for me, that makes no sense at all.
Exactly, because let me put it this way: if that was anyone other than Goff in motion in the way that he was in motion for that play, would they throw in the flag? No, because they wouldn't have looked for it. And it is, I know the ref said, oh, yeah, it took 90 seconds because we're having a conference and that. Come on. But the fact that Goff was still arguing about it literally later, trying to get the explanation from the ref, and it caused the delay of game as well. If you can't quite, if you like, it's supposed to be, I know obviously all scoring plays are reviewable. They're not reviewable for that. It shouldn't have been, that's not looked at. It's just so many confusing things. And that was kind of the first in, as we get on to a cavalcade of questionable decisions by the referees. Like, it's bad when fans of other teams that aren't even anything to do with the Lions are aggrieved by this and pointing out the other things, as we'll get on to. The fact that they couldn't quite clearly explain to Goff and to Dan why this happened, because Dan, obviously, I think Dan said something about New York in his post-game press release. He thought it came from New York, even though supposedly it wasn't. That wasn't clearly communicated to him. And we know what the lines are like with these trick plays. They always explain them to the refs. This is the second time something like this has happened, where we did a trick play, and then the refs have incorrectly called it in a way, like, okay, under the rules, yes, but if this is the rule, the refs should know it, and then should say to Dan when he explains the trick play, because Dan says he always does that with these kind of plays, to actually know you can't do it because this, and this. Especially if like a play like this that needs timing and that. I know Goff bobbled the catch. They would have practiced this in training camp when they've got the refs there. Why didn't the ref, when that did that in training camp, say, actually, no, this is wrong? There's just so many, like, all these little things. It's too many coincidences for it not to add up to something like that. And I don't want to be the conspiracy theorist, like, league wants exciting games, wants to help the Chiefs. You can't have your best, the face of the league, as Collingsworth said on the broadcast just as the game was done. You can't have him being 2-4 and losing another game at home in a big way, especially after what happened last time we were in Arrowhead. It's just too many little things. And yeah, the fact that they couldn't clearly communicate it to Goff when he's trying to get explanation, you then throw the delay game, and it means we go from a 4th and goal on their 1 and scoring to going 4th and goal from their 10 and having to kick the field goal because there's no way we're scoring on a 10-yard play.
I guess all I would say is, even if Dan explains the play to the referees, they're under no obligation to tell him it's going to be a flag, and they're under no obligation to tell him anything at that point. In terms of what you're saying about training camp and those referees, they're there to officiate the game and to explain where things are right and wrong. But if it is a lesser known rule, maybe those referees didn't know that rule. All I can say is, you can tell the refs all you want about what your plan is for a trick play. They don't have to tell you that it's a penalty.
But then they can't get mad. Then they can't get mad when after the game, people are calling them out.
Oh, sure, but I think this is going to be added to the list of the poor decisions they made. And actually, I think this might be one of the rare occurrences where they took their time to make the right decision, and I actually kind of applaud it in some sort of really weird way. Like, I'd rather, because the refereeing standard is so bad in the league, I would rather they took their time to get the decisions right. And I know in soccer, VAR has not exactly worked, and that is about taking your time to make the right decision. But they ended up in the right spot. So I'm kind of okay with it. Like, it sucks the way it happened, but so what? But they got the right decision in the end, so that's fine.
And to go back to not explain it, kind of, but when they saw what happened to the refs with the Dan Skipper, Taylor Decker play in the Cowboys, and there's the kind of gentleness that Dan doesn't have to tell him about the trick play. He can just pull it out, but he's the kind of coach that wants that respect for the refs, where he's like, I'm going to do this. Is this okay? If they turn around, don't say anything, and then throw that flag, Dan is then allowed to sort of call them out in the way he did in the post-game press release. It seems it came from New York. It's that kind of, well, I'm being gentleman here. You're not.
But I don't think he's doing it to be gentlemanly. He's doing it to avoid flags being thrown on plays that don't need to be thrown because they're legal plays. They just don't want to confuse the refs. It's not about respect for the refs. It's about maximising our chances of winning the game by making sure they're correctly called.
And then, but you saw what happened with that thing. So he doesn't want to
lose. Yeah. When that happened. Okay, but that's a previous fuck up. It's nothing to do with this one.
But then he's making sure they know. So then if they don't fuck up, they got the right one here. But then that's why he does it as well. You're saying to not get the flags thrown. If the refs don't explain it, then he explains it. They don't say anything, and then we do the play, and it gets flagged.
I mean,
Dan's not going to do it anymore.
Are you presuming that he told them about this trick play, or did he say that he told them?
Yes, because I'm presuming because of what happened after the one in
Dallas. No, that's cool. That's cool. I just wanted to make sure he didn't say in a press conference, I told them we were going to do this beforehand. Because the thing is, it would be egregious if they took this long to officiate it, given he told them that he was going to do it. I don't want to give the impression to the people listening or watching this that we know that he told them it when he may not have done, because we're assuming a lot.
We are assuming a lot in the same way that we're assuming a lot that, as we say, with a load of things that they just don't see it. But I think it's because I'm going off that previous information of what he said with the infamous Dan Skipper, Taylor Decker play, where he said, I explained it to them. I always go to the rest before the game and make them aware that we might be running this kind of play. Just let them know so they know how to officiate it properly, and to presumably give them the chance to say, no, actually, if you do that, you're contravening this rule. So it is an assumption. It might be that Dan doesn't want to say he did that because he doesn't want to put more scoring onto the rest of Aldi, Aldi getting it. Like even Bruce Arians on the Pat McAfee show, even though I disagree with some of the things he said, RE rules and officiating them. The fact that he said, yeah, it's a bit disappointing. We have part-time refs and blah, blah, blah. That's true. And I think Dan's the kind of guy that, okay, if it's by wrong the rules, we're going to say it, but I'm also not going to pull more scorn to say, well, we told you about it before. Why didn't tell us then? It's just, again, it's a presumption by previous information.
Yes. Anyway, Lions kick the field goal there and go up. Lions struggle with pass defense all day, and it starts from this very first drive. Huge amount of zone coverage being played compared to normal. The idea, I think the popular theory as to why is that they didn't feel like they had the horses to go man-to-man because of the number of injuries that they had. Regardless, it was picked apart by Kansas City, especially by Brown, Worthy, and Kelsey. The run game didn't do too much in the first half. I don't think so. Just going through drive by drive, as I said before, they kind of proceeded down the field. Big 4th down and 3 for a touchdown for Kansas City. Amik was beaten by Worthy at the line with speed. Amik tried to press him, and Worthy was gone. Like, it's a really impressive play by Xavier Worthy. Amik kind of just looks stupid at it, but another really big play in a big moment where it could have been a turnover on downs, and the Lions could have taken over 3 ahead. Instead, Kansas City go ahead. Lions hit back with a JMO crosser for a touchdown. That was great pass protection. In a game where the Lions struggled a bit with pass protection, that was an incredible rep. Really nice way to hit back and go up by 3. Kansas City had another really big 4th down conversion on 4th and 1, but then Mahomes had his strip sack, lucky to get back on that. Amazing rep by Hutch on tight end Noah Gray, kind of walks him back into the quarterback and then just took the ball out of Mahomes' hands. Very lucky to get back on that ball, by the way. Another way in which the game went in their favour. That led to 3rd and 18, where the Lions allowed them to get 17 on 4th and 1. They end up throwing it, which I thought was quite interesting because they actually seemed like they had it all day in the run game, but not for big chunk plays. I said they struggled in the run, but like getting those 1 or 2 yards, they seemed very adept at doing that. Instead, they went to the air, and Thomas Harper got a really big PBU at the time, which meant that the Lions continued to be ahead at this point and get the ball. And then they proceeded down the field, 4th down and 2, Amon-Ra with a drop, with about 2:40 on the clock in the first half. It was a very wobbly pass by Goff, and he had lots of wobbly passes in this game. I thought it was quite notable. I know Goff doesn't throw an especially pretty pass, but it was egregious in this game that there was some wobbly passes out there by him. That drop, Amon-Ra's first on 4th down in his career, and his first drop since 2023. So, like, super rare. All of the things that have happened until now have kind of just gone against the Lions in terms of those high leverage plays. This is late on in the first half. Then Kansas City convert a 3rd down and 10 at the 32 1 minute left. Kelsey asks for DPI and gets it. It looks very weak. Mahomes then with an option play touchdown and taunts Branch. And then that only leaves the Lions down by 3. There's about 30 seconds to go in a timeout. You should give yourself a better chance to get a field goal, but the Lions kind of just go, I think it was 3 and out. I'm pretty sure it was. And then had to punt away to end the half. I mean, Ash, all of these things in this first half, you had the touchdown being called back, the 4th down and 3 for a touchdown, a 4th down and 1 that they convert, and then Mahomes gets back on the strip sack. Yes, we have the PBU by Harper, but then Kelsey gets his DPI, Mahomes has the taunting, and then we can't get a field goal. And all of that had to happen so that we only went down by 3 going into the half.
Exactly, yeah. Like, to start with the good, what a PBU by Harper, because I remember when that drive was when Kirby went out injured, like, who's going to replace him? It's like, we were debating ourselves. You said, obviously, I went Harper because he's better fit in terms of what we do, like the sort of fitting in for Kirby. Turns out it was him. I then pulled up, literally, it was that the timeout, and then I was like, oh, yeah, but looked it up, I was like, Harper's played the Chiefs twice last year, did not give up a completion, and then he comes out and does that on like his small amount of reps, has a PBU, which at that point, seemed a bit momentum changing because that was on our 19. So if they converted that 4th and 1 with that, I think it was around probably about our 10. They might have been a 1st and goal. They could have scored and got the lead. So he kind of saved it there. But yeah, it was a calamity of errors in that sort of the end of half, as you say, not being able to convert on that 4th and 2, giving them their ball at the whatever it was. They go the 55 yards in 2 minutes drive. We have the chance to, as you say, at least go into the half tied up. Don't do it. Just go 3 and out though. Yeah, it's just is that again the incompletion to Gibbs on the 3rd and 2. Good punt by Fox, the MC 11, and they just kneel it. But yeah, the fact that at least going into the half, we were only down 3 when all the things have gone wrong. We're usually a team that this year does bounce back in the second half and is able to make some adjustments and fix some things. So at least then, like we were kind of sitting there like, oh yeah, okay, not the worst, not the best end to the half, also not the worst. It's still recoverable, inverted commas. We can still come out and win this game, even though I was definitely getting hurt up in the sports by the heckling, but that's always me, isn't it?
Yeah, you did not handle it well. Yeah, so that's the half. Into the second half, Kansas City have the ball to start it up 3. And this is where the Lions' run defense just kind of falls a bit to pieces. You start seeing people like Pacheco and Hunt start to kind of gain some yardage. And I mean, they only went at about 4 yards a carry. Mahomes himself only went for 3.2 yards a carry, which I think is remarkable in itself, given he's the rushing leader of this team. But, you know, when they were getting 1 or 2 yard runs in the first half, this started becoming 4, 5, 6 yard runs for them. It kind of masks that a little bit, I think, the first and second half difference there. So suddenly, I think a lot of that's brought on by the poor play in pass defense and zone coverage, that maybe the Lions committed a little bit more to trying to cover because they were getting gashed that way. With a lot lighter boxes now, Kansas City just kind of take advantage. Linebackers, I think, also really struggle to fill their gaps in run alignment, especially with the fact that they were struggling to cover. So lots of kind of going on there, I think. But in that first drive in the second half, Kelsey had his catch, which was somewhat assisted by the ground, and they managed to get to the next play very quickly, to the point where the Lions substituting only had 9 men on the field. And I'm not an expert. I'm not an NFL head coach. But I'm pretty sure that when you have 9 men on the field, you call timeout. And considering throwing the challenge flag, which if you fail, brings a timeout, just throw the challenge flag. Like, if you're wrong, who cares? Just, you can't run a play with 9 men on the field. You're going to get done. The fact that Kansas City didn't score a touchdown on that next play is a bloody miracle when you've got 2 less men on the field. So there's that huge screw up, not just by the refs, but by ourselves as well. The drive finished off by a pop pass to Hollywood Brown running from right to left. Really well blocked by the wide receivers on that left-hand side, and one player over perceives on the Lions' defense, and they just walk in for a touchdown to go up by 10. And then the Chiefs' run D, while it was struggling early on, and the Lions got some really good runs in there in the first half, the Chiefs' run defense really tightens up in this second half. There was some really kind of big losses in there, including extension to the run game. You had Jahmyr Gibbs on a swing pass, just get totally blown up by Tranquil for a big loss on second down, making it 3rd and long. You then had next play a JMO screen pass completely broken up. So all of these little things that were going so well last year starting to go bad, and the Chiefs making their second half adjustments so successful against the Lions. So they end up forcing a punt for the Lions up 10. Finally, the Lions force their first punt of the game for the Chiefs, where Mahomes scrambles but comes up short, deep in his own territory, so they can't go for it on 4th down. So you get the ball back, and finally maybe you have some life. First drive of the 4th quarter. Impressive drive featuring both Monty and Amon-Ra St. Brown, finished by that incredible Sam Laporte for a catch at the back of the end zone. You may not find a prettier touchdown this year, although we've had quite a few, mostly by Tesla. So that made it a 3-point game, start of the 4th quarter. If you get one more stop, maybe you can make something of this. It's a big if when you're coming up against a team which has gashed you all day. 2nd and 7. Looked like you might have had a chance. Mahomes with a really bad pass, but Aiden classes Mahomes about 2 seconds after the play has gone for a roughing call. That might be the play that lost the game, because the Lions didn't get a sniff after that, and that would have been 3rd and 7. That drive ends up on 3rd and goal from the 3. Touchdown to Hollywood Brown on a shallow crossing route from left to right. A meek block got blocked by his own man, which I think was Jack Campbell, which is why Jack Campbell looks like he's meant to be the coverage guy on the play. Definitely looks like it's a Meek Robertson, but there we go. So that makes it 27-17. Very little time left, but then the Lions go 3 and out with kind of conservative play calling with not much time left. There were shallow crossing routes, short passes. It was pretty rough, to be honest, considering at this point you kind of have to score quickly to put some pressure on the Chiefs. You end up punting it away, but you only get it to like their 45. So really short field for the Chiefs. They kill a lot of clock. Al-Qadim Mohammed gets a sack to end that drive, but by this time there's only 2 minutes left. Field goals hit, 30-17, and the Lions go four and out after getting 9 yards on the first play of this last drive, where we actually got kicked out of the casino because it closed and we didn't watch it before, but whatever. Some rough throws by Goff in that very final set, like some really horrible wobbly balls. And then that leads to kneel downs and the game is over. I think it was a really rough second half, Ash, and yet 3 points down in the fourth quarter, get one stop and you can be there. And that Hutch roughing, I mean, I don't think there's any defending it on second look. Like, first look, it kind of looked a bit, not bang bang, it was a tiny bit late, but maybe not too bad. Second look, I think it's a really, really bad play by Hutch, who, there's other plays where we could have done better too. But it really did cost us the opportunity for third and long, get the ball back to go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not going to defend it, but I'm going to point out that there's been a similar play against us a couple of years ago where Goff clearly had the ball out. It's 5 seconds later, Boyan Maffei absolutely smacks him, and that wasn't flagged. But yeah, it's an uncharacteristic play from Hutch, and unfortunately, it was just a day of just uncharacteristic things happening. And yeah, that kind of was the final nail in the coffin. Like, there's a load of plays, as you say, that we can point to and say that play could have technically lost the game and all this, like Darren Rod drop on fourth down, the holding, the defensive pass interference by Yasin that arguably actually should have been defensive holding, which is a lesser one, and that's what Kelsey himself was relaying to the referee, which is dead why the referee, the flag end through DPI. I'm kind of glad we didn't see the sort of the last couple of drives from us that kind of flamed out, because I would not have been happy. But yeah, the fact it was still only 3 points behind and it was relatively that close. I know the score does not show that at all, obviously with 13-point difference, but there's no moral victories. But yeah, the team can at least hang its head high in the fact that the moral victory of we kept it close, even when it seemingly circumstances were just not going our way at all in the game. Every little thing that could be like a 50-50 or that just didn't go our way. Like even the Hutch strip sack, which is extending, he's tied an NFL record now with straight games with a sack and a forced fumble, up there with like Khalil Mack when he got traded to the Bears level. We're talking here. That didn't go our way. Just those things that, add up in the end to the swing of points that it was. And it's sad to see, because we know we can be better. The team knows they can be better, but they just weren't today. And unfortunately, it's going to be magnified because it's against the Dynasty team on national television. Everyone's watching it. And yeah, rightly, people are questioning some things about us, even though they forget the sort of caveats that we were basically without our secondary, because as much as I love Branch and Kirby, they're playing at like 70% right now with their lingering injuries. And Meek is good as a cornerback one, but going up against 4.2 speed ain't good for him. And then Rocky, it seems he's best as you can stick him in for a game, but when you start having to trust him again against Kelsey and Ford and all that, faster players, he doesn't do as well. So definite questions to be had, but also we did well when we could.
Yeah. It's just such a frustrating game, because I never really felt like we were out of it until we went, until they had that roughing call. And then from there, it's like, we're just not going to stop them and they can roll on. It was super frustrating. So I've just got to get to the fact that there was a $10 super chat by Jeff Hurley. Many thanks, Jeff. Much appreciated. Didn't get an alert on my stream, which is frustrating on Streamlabs, which normally alerts me when we get something on YouTube. So apologies for that I missed that. But thank you. Your support's appreciated. So the other thing just to mention really about all of this is the fact that Kansas City had no accepted penalties on them. There was, after we left, one called on Chris Jones for being offside. It wasn't accepted because we actually got on the 9 yards in that final drive, which beat the 5 that we would have got for the penalty. So not accepted. It was the first time since 2023 where there was a game where a team got no accepted penalties. And this comes off the back of a 13 penalty game last week where seemingly everything was going against them, including 4 on special teams, I might add. So, only 9 otherwise. But, that's a massive flex from one to the other. And I can imagine it was a point of emphasis in the week leading up to this. You've just conceded 13. If you don't bloody sort this out, you're getting benched, would be one of the things I would have been coaching into them. But sometimes you just can't avoid them. And when you look back on the tape, and it's really become a point of emphasis for the people who like to make silly videos on Twitter, I think sometimes, that, they've kind of tried to tabulate every single time there might have been a missed call. And I know there's always loads of holding penalties and stuff like that are missed. But there does seem to be an alarming number of instances in this game for both teams where flags could have been thrown and weren't. You can say the refs maybe were a bit lenient, but a good majority of them were going Kansas City's way. And you can say that the refs are just having a bad day. But Ash, you have to beat the refs, obviously. Dan always wants to say, even if the refs are against us, you're going to end up winning the game anyway because you've beaten them so badly. But in this game, given that it was a 3-point game early in the fourth quarter, it really did make the difference in this game.
Yeah, as soon as you're saying that, I was literally pulling up the thread that I retweeted yesterday about it. So obviously, the start of the egregious one, we did mention it, the Kelsey drop that was ruled a catch. Yes, Dan should have challenged it, but come on, there was a ref there, should have seen that it was a drop, the catch assisted. There's obviously the illegal formation one, which we've discussed, but there was also on that play, Chris Jones literally has his hand where the ball is. It's offsides. Clearly, like, it's not like a little tiny one. It's kind of like Hutch's last week where I was actually saying, get your hand back, Hutch, come on, and it negates his sack. That wasn't called. There was the delay of game then afterwards, as I mentioned, where he's trying to get explanation from the ref, trying to talk to him about that. There was a holding penalty on Kelsey that wasn't called. It's quite clearly holding someone and it on a screen pass, and it helps them basically get the screen pass because he stops the defender making the play. Full start on the Chiefs on the goal line that should have been called.
That one was really bad, actually. He went very, very early.
Yeah. There was a on the penalty, the touchdown we mentioned where he should have been in coverage, but it's a kind of pick one, he was just behind it. Juwan Taylor was holding Kutch to high heaven. There was another holding penalty later on that helped negate some good penetration by us. Holding penalty on their touchdown. On this, the Mahomes scramble to set up a touchdown. Face mask that was missed. Obviously, there was the Kelsey one where, okay, it was holding, but you can see the ref doesn't throw the flag until Kelsey's right up him saying, like, what's that? It's just, all these little things that, Ked is usually 1 or 2. Like, there's probably some missed penalties on us, and the touchdown one where if that the rules, then that should have been flagged. But when the balance is so clearly in one way where people are pointing out the missed calls and it's the whole thing, but the Chiefs weren't flagged at all except for that one. There's clear offsides in the end. It didn't really matter because it wasn't accepted. When load of places are tweeting that out, it's egregious. And as we mentioned earlier when I was joking, like, it does very much seem like there was a thing that, yes, it points evidence for the Chiefs not to do it, and if they're going to do it, be subtle. But some of them weren't subtle, and it does breed a sort of conspiracy theory that the league doesn't want their big flashy team that draws in all the TV numbers losing on prime time and putting themselves out of the race, because otherwise it's a thing, because that's always the thing, isn't it? When they're asked about this, like, oh yeah, we're technically not supposed to be entertainment. That's what they use to defend themselves, is entertainment, and so they've got to protect their brand by keeping their big names into it. It's like WWE. Sometimes you've got to book the fights to keep your prices with the titles because it makes it interesting.
Let's talk stock up, stock down, because I think we've kind of come to the end of a discussion there, really. Who do you want to shout out for doing well this week?
Mentioned him earlier, Thomas Harper. I know he didn't have many snaps. He was obviously only coming in when Kirby was out injured and was on the sidelines and that. But on his snaps, which he only had 10 of them, he did finish as our highest graded defender by a big margin. It's 87.5, big PBU, was only targeted that once on the fourth down and didn't give everything up. Didn't attempt to tackle, but was good on the back end. Luckily, everyone cleared it in front of him. And as someone that we were kind of panicking, like, oh God, who's going to come in now? Because we were so down the back of the secondary. He showed why the team signed him. When we did cut down, someone was like, oh, who was signing this guy? At least with Thomas and Lacey, and we were like, oh, special teams Harper. It was a bit more of that's a dart throw. Let's see if it works out. Right now, it's worked out for sure. So if Kirby can't go this week, if Branch doesn't he doesn't have a successful appeal and he's out for this week, Harper might be getting a few more snaps and hopefully continues it on. I know the Bucks are beaten up, and we'll get more into that later down the road. But if we need him next week, he could do some stuff for us. He could be a nice stabilizing force while we're going to the bye without Kirby, potentially, without Maddox, and potentially without Branch as well.
I'll give JMO a shout out. Scoring that touchdown early, he got hit a couple of times like a blooming pinball machine, still managed to get through to the end zone. But, I mean, he was fantastic last week in his blocking performance, but he really rebounded as a receiver in this game. I thought he, especially in the shallow routes, God, I turned into an Englishman again. Routes. Were especially good. So I thought he had a very impressive performance, got rewarded by Goff giving him the ball a bit more often. The chemistry seemed to be a bit more on point this week. So fair play to him for rebounding the receiving game.
Yeah, definitely. I know, obviously, as you said, was kind of thing that people were moaning he wasn't really getting involved. And yeah, he had the nice stat line of obviously 6 catches, 66 yards. So that was good to see.
Anyone else for you?
I'll stick with the defense. And again, it's someone we've both mentioned over the past couple of weeks is stepping up. Roy Lopez, again, had a pretty good game. Like, got 2 tackles, had a further assisted one. Didn't have much impact on the pass rushing game, but filling in on the defensive line, he did pretty well. Only 23 snaps, but didn't really put a foot wrong. Made the plays when we needed him to. So, again, someone that potentially with William coming back this week, we've got an open roster spot with the way you think of Lauren Strickland. He's someone that people might see his role diminishing, but I think he'll still have a role to play on key rundowns and potentially, as we mentioned a couple of times, both of us, as that sort of pin for the looping stunts we like to do on third downs now. So keep on it, Roy. Like it.
The only other guy I'm going to mention is Dan Skipper. And I don't care about the stats about him giving away the most pressures of any lineman this season. It wasn't actually that many. I think it was 6. That's not massively high for someone who's basically a third string left tackle. It wasn't even on the bloody 53 until very, very recently after coming off an injury. And we know that he's not a fantastic tackle, right? The fact that he went in and for the majority of this game looked like he kind of belonged, to the point where he probably should be maybe a primary backup somewhere. You know, I thought he deserved huge credit for just stepping in and managing to put on a performance where we weren't losing every rep at that position instantly. You know, they did get some pressure later on in this game consistently, which kind of gave Goff some problems, but I'm not sure that was necessarily on him. I do think that some of that was coming through the interior. The pass blocking grades for both Ratledge and Mahogany are pretty rough, so maybe, you know, they are coming in from that sort of 2i, 3 tech position rather than that wide 9 or 7 tech positions. I think Skipper kind of, I don't want to say he was dominant in any sense, because I don't think that's fair either, but I just thought he did better than I expected him to, and that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, and then I'll say because I was surprised that you didn't go for this guy, but I'll say so the comments don't come for us. But obviously, Sam Laporta continuing to, after sort of being the focal point last week, this week obviously the great touchdown, but in the blocking game as well. Like, again, PFF is not the be all and end all on these things, but him, and actually I'll kind of put, well, right to a lesser extent, but out of all the players to play and get pass blocking grades, Brock Wright and Sam Laporta were 3 and 4 with 73.3 and 72.3 respectively. But then Sam was also our 4th highest graded run blocker and our Where is he? And then our top rated pass catcher by PFF. So someone who we obviously we remember we were discussing before the game about how maybe he hasn't lived up to that rookie billing, and why is that? He's maybe shown that he's bouncing back. He's finally getting back to that rookie form because with the potential fall off of Kelsey, with Kittle being injured, and with Bowers being injured right now, the sort of top tight end in the league sort of role right now, it's up for grabs. And Laporte has definitely got a chance if he continues this on to get back into being that stratosphere that he was the start with his rookie seasons, and then the end of last season coming off the knee injury finally. So it's nice to see that him, even though JMO's coming back into it, Amon-Ra is still here, we've still got the run game and that. Laporte's still around, and he's definitely going to make plays for us.
What about stock down? I'm going to kick us off because you've just had one on the up again. And I think it's tough to choose because I do think at the end of the day, our offense not really functioning on key downs was the reason why we lost this game. The defense on a down-to-down basis was poor, but the offense was pretty good. So I don't know whether to pick a defensive player because the down-to-down stuff was bad or an offensive player because the key down stuff was bad. I think I'm going to go Jack Campbell, who I think we've been singing the praises of all year for really taking a step forward. This game, he took a massive step back, and I do think that part of that is on the defensive game plan. And so I think Kelvin Shepherd deserves some criticism. I do recognise that the number of injuries we have potentially hamstrings you. But the way we played, it was like we were almost playing prevent defence all day. You know, it was death by 1,000 cuts with defeat almost assured with the way we were playing. You know, the fact that we hung around was a credit to the offense, and yeah, they wobbled, especially just before and just after half-time on offense. And if we hadn't, maybe this is a different game. But, you know, you were forcing your offense to play perfectly because the defense, really, apart from one series, couldn't stop shit. And Jack was a big part of that.
Yeah, definitely.
What about you?
I'm going to say it. My boy Kirby. I know he's playing injured and all that. As Shep said, week one when Terry had to go at the thing and he had a bad game. There's no excuse for that. If you're well enough to play, you put yourself in. You're not well enough to play, don't put yourself back in. 50% missed tackle rate in this game. Made 4 tackles and missed 4. And obviously, with some of the stuff that happened, he was also pretty bad in coverage with 3 catches allowed on 3 targets for 53 yards. He was credited one of the touchdowns. So that's a perfect passer rating allowed in coverage as well. That's not good, especially, again, it's on prime time. People can be watching you. You've at one point for about a week or two, you were the highest paid safety in the league. You're still up there, like you're second paid. People are going to be looking for you and for you to, have a down game as one of the sort of stars of this defense. It kind of, I don't want to put it on him, but yeah, when he had that bad injury, maybe you should have just not came back in because it clearly affected his performance already in the game and then playing on it for the rest of the game. Sometimes you just got to learn to take a seat, and he should have done that in this game. And it might mean that he has to miss this week. And I know, again, as I said earlier, the Bucks are banged up at the receiver position. They've still got enough talent to make us pay if we don't defend the back end properly. So it's going to be an issue.
Yeah. The other one I'm going to call out is Amon-Ra. And it feels harsh. The 4th down drop is not the only reason why. You know, at the end of the day, 9 of 10 for 45. He didn't drop much, but it seemed everything for him was in the flat. There was very little down the field. Maybe that's the way we've called the plays in the game. Maybe that goes to the offensive play caller too, but route running just seemed a little bit less sharp than normal. He seemed to really struggle to beat people in terms of getting any sort of separation when he was catching the ball. Yak was especially constrained, and maybe that goes to Kansas City playing really good defense, but I haven't seen Amon-Ra be so kind of shackled by a team in some time. We're used to him being a game breaker, and our offense kind of relies on that. And he wasn't that on Sunday. And it feels harsh because he was still fine, but for the Lions offense to really rumble on and kind of go, you know what, maybe this team is kind of unbeatable. We need him firing on all cylinders, and he just wasn't.
Yeah, the Chiefs had a good game plan, just sticking Trent McDuffie on him all game, and it worked. Yeah, he got the catches in, but yeah, there was just no yak from there. It's not like last week where we're playing the team that gives up the most jack. They knew what to do to shut down the passing offense, and it worked. So fair play to the Chiefs. Yeah, it does feel harsh, obviously, pointing out to Van Rob, but yeah, we used him being game. It's like, same with Kirby. Just saying, when our stars have bound games, it's really noticeable and it does affect us, and that's what happened with Amara on offense. Because yeah, not just the fourth down drop, as say, sort of not being that chain mover, getting some of the yak that we need to, being that physical guy, running for the catches. We saw some of the Chiefs players do it, and yeah, unfortunately, just wasn't there for Mariah on Sunday.
Anyone else you want to call out?
Again, it's hard. It's going to be harsh because he only played 2 snaps, but one of them was the overshoot on the touchdown. And considering the circumstances of him coming onto the roster, Tyra Sweet, I don't know why he hasn't been waived, especially if we say Tyler Lacey's took up a role now as that big end. What is Wheat doing on the roster? Is he that good on special teams that he's got to be here? I don't know. But when you've unlimited defense action, you're overshooting on the touchdown and you're giving that up and you're not really making an impact. Yeah, actually, I'm looking 54.5 grade on special teams, including a 42.1 in this game. Like,
normally you only get a grade that low if you've given away a penalty, and he didn't. So,
exactly,
it's pretty egregious, but hey, yeah.
Exactly.
No disagreement from me.
Yeah, considering, as we say, what happened with him, like why didn't we keep around Nate Lee and all this? He's quite clearly the worst guy in the room. Yeah.
All right, let's move on from this game and go to the rest of the weekend's games. I was saying to Ash, because we were kind of watching things live together, we didn't have as many eyes on the games as maybe we could have done. But just to pick up on maybe a couple of key games which happened, which are affecting the Lions in this weekend's slate. Or maybe just some that are potentially funny. First to pick up here maybe then is the Panthers besting the Cowboys 30-27. I mean, my God, what a performance by the Panthers. And the Cowboys, I mean, they could never kind of break free of them. The Panthers always kind of just hanging around. The Cowboys went in 4-point leaders at the half, but Bryce Young and that team, this is the first time I can say it about the Panthers since Cam was there. They're gritty.
Yeah, 100%. And that's typified by, again, the fact that Rico Dowdle against his old team, great day in the ground, 30 carries, 183 yards, 6.1 yards average. And then he was also their leading receiver, 5 targets, 4 catches, 56 yards and a touchdown. He carried that team through it because, Bryce had a good day, 17-25, nearly 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. It was 100% on that ground game. And again, ready for the bingo card thing. Their kicker, Fitzpatrick, had such a good day kicking, 3 of 3 on field goals, including the game winner, 3 of extra points. That Panthers team, it's good. And it kind of makes it funny, obviously, that, the Packers, all this team that's now, again, because we've lost to the Chiefs now suddenly back in the lead because of their tie with the Cowboys. They tied with the Cowboys 40-40, and this Panthers team, which hasn't been too good so far, except for maybe last week, came and beat them. Really typical, especially since Green Bay have all these stars on defense, and yet the shit Panthers defense gave up less points and less rushing yards to the Cowboys. Like their leading rusher, Javonte Williams, just breakout star again, coming off his ACL, is finally back. 2.2 yards a carry average, long of 6 yards. They had nothing. The Cowboys had 19 carries for 31 yards. And that longest 6 for Javonte Williams is their longest run of the day. And it's not like, Dowdle got it on one run either. His long was 15. Etienne had a long of 11. Jimmy Horn Jr. on his end around had a long of 11. Bryce Young had a run for 8 yards. The Panthers, were gritty, and they did beat the brakes off the Cowboys, so it's only a 3-point win, but metaphorically, they just bruised them up.
Yeah. Otherwise, having a look at some of the other games, Bengals Packers, you kind of referenced a little. Well, you've referenced the Packers at least. It was 10-0 Packers, despite throwing a horrible pick, Jordan Love. Um, Bengals really struggled to kind of get anything going, but then get the solo touchdown in the third quarter and make it a 6 point game with 4 minutes to go. The Packers kind of never looked in trouble, but also never really put the game really to bed until a couple of minutes to go. I don't think this reflects particularly well on the Packers because, this Bengals team, especially the defense, doesn't exactly have the best rep. And, with a fresh quarterback in Flacco, I think you would have expected the Packers to do more. I kind of count this as a net negative for them.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know obviously Flacco maybe is a bit better of a fit for those outside receivers than Browning was, which is typified by the fact that Chase is back to himself with nearly 100 yards and touchdown. T. Higgins had a good day. The ground game just wasn't there again for Chase Brown, unfortunately. Like only 55 yards on the ground total for the team. But yeah, they just didn't really put them away until the end. And this is, as you say, we know this defense isn't great, gives them no shack and all this, but yeah, it was just one of them annoying games, kind of like ours and for the Chiefs, where the other team that lost, even though we said it's more than a score loss, they hung around to the end. Like they're not exactly going to win more games now, the Bengals, but there's enough there offensively for them to at least try and keep pace with some of these teams. If they don't have the best day, they could shock some teams. And yeah, well done to the Packers. They're now 3-1-1. They're top of the totem pole in the FC North because of that tie. But yeah, there's worrying things for them, especially since, as we said, that the Bengals defense isn't good. And they were missing their best player for like half the game because Hendrickson went out with an injury.
Yeah.
Just,
Frustrating that the Bengals couldn't
yeah.
have done a little bit more there because it kind of almost was there for the taking. But hey. Next up, we've got a battle of the heavyweights in the NFC. The Buccaneers beat the 49ers 30-19. And, Mac Jones had some good moments, but the stat line is not good reading 27-39 for 347 and 2 picks. San Francisco got nothing going on the ground. They were 3 yards of carry all day. Baker Mayfield didn't throw the ball a huge amount, and Tampa Bay also didn't rush the ball a huge amount. Like, this is a game that kind of didn't really ebb and flow particularly. San Francisco put up big numbers and then kind of coughed it up in crucial moments, and otherwise Tampa Bay kind of just made the most of that. Big day for Kendrick Bourne on the San Francisco side. He got 5 catches for 142 yards. Tampa Bay got a couple of touchdowns on the ground and a couple through the air and kind of just rode that out.
Yeah, exactly. And fair play to like Bowles and the OC for the Bucks, who obviously we're going to go into a lot more in the later this week with us. Obviously, played them on Monday night, but fair play to them to adjust into their personnel. As soon as Buka went out with the injury, they adjusted. They were like, okay, we're not going to really try and push the ball down to like too much. Run it when we can. Just try and play a nice, safe game plan because yeah, they didn't have the horses as we get onto like that. When suddenly your leading receiver when a Buka went out is Sterling Shepard, who is a great wide receiver four, but you want him to be that wide receiver four. You don't want him to be wide receiver one. Fair play to them adjusting, and yeah, when everything pretty much went against them in terms of yardage, time of possession, 49ers had more time of possession, but they win. Just shows their defense is there. It can capitalize on mistakes. Obviously, the 2 interceptions on Mac Jones, and the team does what it needs to do. Fair play to them for winning a game that wasn't on the last minute score. They showed that they're not the Vikings of last year. They're not like some other teams. It's all by squeaky bum time. They are the kind of team that can come up against a 4-on-1 team, a team that while it's having some issues in injury wise, is still pretty damn talented. Has got some good coaching. They beat them quite handily, and fair play to them. Like Baker, I know obviously people might have him as leading in the MVP, and I can see it. Still rather have Goff, to reference a conversation we had with a fan in the Paddy Power sports bar, but
At 3:45 in the
Baker.
morning, mind.
A quarter,
Um,
a quarter four exactly.
did you happen to catch who made the first interception for Tampa Bay in San Francisco's first
Yes,
drive?
yes, I
Kindle
did.
fucking Vildor.
He remembered not to use his face mask.
I wonder if we'll be facing him as a starting player on Monday night. That's going to form an interesting part of our
Oh
little
my god,
preview.
that's
What a return that's going to be for him.
oh
Because I don't want to give us too much credit. We gave him a role in the league that he may not otherwise have had. The reason why he's still in the league might be down to us.
yeah,
I
he
think
was
he
a big
owes us a
break.
fair bit. I'm not saying he needs to pay us back. I'm just saying it's going to be an emotional
Oh,
return for someone.
I mean, if he wants to, just there's a JMO Dita ball and just decides, I'll help you. Like, just bounce off my face mask for you, like pay back with the karma. I'm there for it, but
Yeah.
yeah,
If only it was
I
against
saw
San
that.
Francisco, but hey.
No.
Going on to Monday Night Football now, just because it's recent and prominent. I know this isn't the game that you necessarily watched a huge amount of, but the Bills fall to the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta 24-14. And, I mean, this is an incredible game. Michael Penix looked passable. Drake London completely ruined the Buffalo Bills, 10 of 16, 158 and a touchdown. But that isn't really the thing to shout about here. One, Tampa Bay had a touchdown with 1 second left. No, sorry, with zeros on the time at the end of the first half, where Drake London touched the pylon, but his foot was out of bounds at the 1. So this 10-point gap could have been bigger if it wasn't for that. But also, Bijan Robinson got 170 yards on 19 carries. The Bills have a huge problem on defense. They can't stop anything on the ground. And I'm not saying that Bijan isn't excellent, and he did have an 81-yard rush here. But despite Bijan, they've had problems in the running game before on defense, the Bills. Bijan only kind of stuck a knife in the gash that was already bleeding. Like, the Bills are going to struggle to win any games if they play like this. Especially with Allen throwing a couple of picks and there being a couple of fumbles and that sort of thing. Like, just key moments where this team kept shooting themselves in the foot. And it's like, stop, he's already dead. But they kept going. Like, it was just awful to watch.
Yeah, just to go back, you mean the Falcons? You just say the Bucks said. I was doing the confused
sorry.
face.
Yeah,
You've got the Bucks on your mind. It's fine.
I do.
But yeah, who knew that Dalton Kincaid was that important to the Bills' offense? Because with him being ruled out quite late in the day, which meant that I had to suddenly go and pick up Dawson Knox off waivers to try and cover my tight end position because he was my starting tight end in one of my leagues. Fuck's sake. At least he got the 19 yards and a touchdown. Wasn't enough for me to win the day, though. Josh, as much as I, again, referencing that conversation we just mentioned a couple of minutes ago about Baker, that as much as Josh Allen is still my best quarterback in the league, shows that even supreme aliens like him can't sometimes carry bad teams. Not the best day from him. The Falcons, fair play. I hold my hands up. I disrespected their game, and Raheem Morris has got them turned around. Penix is turning it around slowly but surely. He looks like as you say, a passable QB. He's not going to, rise into the top 10 anytime soon, but he's certainly, not potentially is not in danger of losing his job in the draft. They're not exactly going to scramble and go and get a QB, though. Watch the college show tomorrow to see why that might be, because, this QB class this year is looking rough. But yeah, Bijan, Tyler Algier, they finally remembered they have a good running back too and used him. Just great game plan for the Falcons. Fair play to them. Like, they're keeping themselves afloat in a pretty wild NFC South right now. Like, they could go and win that, and that wouldn't be too shocking considering if they continue playing like that.
And then finally, Bears Commanders. Bears winning a tight one by 25-24 means all of the NFC North teams are now above 500. makes it a very, very interesting division. And this was a really fun, weird game. Both teams shooting themselves in the foot. Um, the Bears really shooting themselves in the foot because they just couldn't convert field goals into touchdowns. They took a lot of field goals in this game. New field goal kicker, of course, being Jake Moody, formerly of Michigan, formerly of San Francisco, who was cut because, quote, he isn't as consistent as we need. And then he ends up having a field goal blocked here, as does Washington, I think, in this game. But otherwise, I think apart from the block field goal, looked very good. I don't think the block field goal was necessarily on him, although it kind of shanked it a bit. But, the Bears took a lot of field goals in this game, but moved the ball very well. DeAndre Swift had himself a game. Basically was the only guy running the ball worth a damn. 14 carries, 108 yards with only a long of 19, so very productive. And then in the passing game, he had a 55-yarder because someone in the Washington team just forgot to tackle, which is just kind of legitimately funny. But then the Commanders moved the ball fine. Bill Cross came out, had a good game. Jaden Daniels on the ground had a good game. But Daniels throws a horrific pick in the first drive of the game. Jaquan Brisker, really nice play by him. I don't think this game maybe could have been as close because Chris Moore's touchdown was maybe one of the most egregious push-offs I've seen in some time. Doesn't get called. But otherwise, they had 3 fumbles where they lost 2. The final one was where they were up by 2, but in their own territory to gift the ball to Chicago in field goal range. So, in some ways, the Bears deserved, I think, to lose this game because they took field goals when they should have been taking touchdowns, or at least trying. And yet, the Commanders kind of gifted it to them. And yet, I don't think the Commanders really deserved it either. And in that way, it kind of had a really fun element to the game, despite the fact that, in my heart of hearts, I still can't cheer for a Bears victory. But, low-key, I really enjoyed watching it.
I could cheer for it because they called me a madman. People who listen to Talking Grit podcast know when they were doing their game predictions for this and that. I predicted the Bears to win. I didn't see it like this, but I just knew there was one game other than the Lions game that Ben Johnson would have fucking circled on the Bears schedule. It'd be this. And they still tried to Bears it up, as we say. They still nearly lost this game. They had to rely on Jake Moody, as you say. When they got that the last fumble, they were playing for that field goal, and half of me was hoping, please, can they just fucking miss the field goal because it'd just be the ultimate sort of kick up the arse for them to don't do that. But they did it, and yeah, it makes this division very interesting now because we've still got a hard schedule, that's for sure. But these teams like the Bears aren't going to be an easy out. We've got the Vikings. Obviously, in a couple of weeks after our bye, they might not be an easy out if JJ McCarthy's back and he's okay. None of these teams in this division is going to be an easy out. And it's fair you say that across the league, the Falcons beating the Bills, the Broncos beating the Eagles. There's all these games now where more than ever, any given Sunday is true. There's no there's teams that are bad, the Saints are bad, the Giants are bad. They are the bottom of the league, but even they can come out and pull results against other teams because the parity right now, partly because of injuries, partly just because of wild stuff, the parity in this league is amazing right now.
Right, that's going to bring an end to our show. Next episode is the College Football Podcast, probably tomorrow, looking back at Week 7, a very eventful Week 7 in college football, and going ahead to Week 8. Main podcast is going to be back with a Tampa Bay preview, date to be confirmed. We normally do it on Thursday, but because it's Monday Night Football, it wouldn't be strange if we push that a little bit later, so keep your eyes peeled for exactly when that's going to be. We're hoping to have a guest from the Bucks UK to join us for that one, so should be a great show. Both teams are severely banged up with injury again, so it's going to be an interesting one to see how both teams deal with that. You can find us on our socials on Royal Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And the group for Worldwide Fans on Facebook is Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. The website, rotluk.com. The game previews you'll find from Ash on there. Otherwise, do subscribe and rate us 5 stars on your podcast provider. Thank you to everyone for listening, and thank you to Ash for doing this with me, especially on a loss. It never feels great, but it is our version of therapy. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you later in the week, but for now, let's go Lions, One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.